Mr. Denya. I'm learning to speak Shona, so I'm excited to know that I can at least throw a word or two of Shona to try and impress you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time here. Let's talk about the important work that you do as the Africa Import-Export Bank, correct? And in the position of the VP at this very point in time, where we are historically as a continent, what do you think are the most important steps that need to be taken in terms of making sure that an organization like yourselves actually does the work that it's created for?
No, thank you. It's my pleasure being here. The African Export-Import Bank was formed in 1993. So this year we celebrated our 30 years of existence. Our focus is on promoting and financing trade. But the key element is intra-Africa trade. In order to trade amongst the African countries, you must produce goods that your neighbors want. Unfortunately, historically, Africa exports raw materials. And if you are producing oil or gas, your neighbors don't need that. So you can only do extra-Africa trade. So one of the key objectives of Afreximbank is to transform the composition of the export basket so that we include processed, manufactured products in there and less of unprocessed raw materials. So that's our focus. And that is a number of advantages. One is the employment it will create here. If you are adding value to your raw materials, you create employment. Also, the retention of the value on the continent. If you are exporting a manufactured or processed product, you get more value. For example, if you export uncut diamonds, you get very little. You polish them, you cut them here, you get more value out of it. So that's what we are focusing on. So we are excited at this point in time that the AfCFTA is up and running. And we are supporting the AfCFTA Secretariat in terms of giving it capacity from a human capital point of view, even from financing its operations, but more importantly in enabling the protocols that will govern trade to be concluded. Now, there are many challenges to Africa trade. Regulations, poor border posts, infrastructure that is lacking. So this conference, the BRICS Business Council Conference, allows us to interact with stakeholders on how can we accelerate the development of infrastructure so that it supports the trade that we desperately need to create jobs and increase the value that we retain on the continent. And to do that, we as Afreximbank, because we are owned by African countries, currently 51 of the 55 countries are members of Afreximbank. We only have Somalia, Libya, South Africa, and Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic who are not yet members.
The reason?
There is a war in Libya, there is instability in Somalia, Sahrawi is a dispute with Morocco. South Africa is still going through the process. But the good news is that in South Africa we have shareholders. ECIC, PIC, Rand Merchant Bank, Standard Bank are all shareholders of Afreximbank. Because Afreximbank is a partnership organization between the private sector and the governments. So the 51 governments are shareholders, and also we have Africa private sector. But we connect to the BRICS through shareholding. In Brazil, BNDES is a shareholder. In Russia, the Russian Export Center is a shareholder. In India, India Eximbank is a shareholder. China, China Eximbank is a shareholder. So from all the BRICS countries, we have shareholders in the bank. So this summit actually allows us to connect, identify opportunities, and then strategize how do we increase trade and economic development on the African country? How do we take advantage of this BRICS grouping?
All of these interactions and the conversations that are happening in boardrooms and at summits such as these are going to be futile if the people on the ground, the entrepreneurs, the young people, the women, the communities are not aware of the need to do all of these things that you're talking about. How do we make sure that conversations like this are not just about talking heads and are distant from the communities?
You are absolutely right. One of the findings that we did was that the reason why intra-Africa trade is so low at 16% of total Africa trade is that there is lack of information. People actually don't know what your neighbors need and where to source things on the continent. Because the former colonial rulers established economic systems that were designed to supply raw materials to their capitals. They were not designed to enable us to trade amongst ourselves. So what we did in 2018 was to launch the first Intra-Africa trade fair. The trade fair allowed African countries and entrepreneurs, young people, to come and learn what's available, what is the capacity there, what are products, and how do I source them, which was very successful. We followed that up with a trade fair in Durban. This year in November, we are having the third version of the trade fair in Cairo, Egypt. And that allows us to showcase the capabilities. Along the trade fair, we have a motor show, we have a youth show, we have a woman, and we have creatives. So that people actually know what's available. And more importantly, we have a digital platform that allows people who are seeking things and people who are selling things to get together and actually discuss, execute business. In that platform, we also have financiers, including ourselves, who are then ready to finance those agreements or deals that the entrepreneurs would have struck. So that's how we do that. So it's about publicizing. Last year we ran what we call Nexus, which is the creatives, films, sports. You have to show a light on these activities, who is doing what, so that people can actually then decide, who do I partner with, how do I take advantage of these opportunities.
Are you seeing through the countries that you're working in that governments are being supportive of or creating an environment where entrepreneurship can thrive when people that you are serving actually take advantage of or use your services? Because you look at the disparities between certain countries on the continent where technological advancement are not at the level where they ideally should be, that there isn't even discussions about the importance and significance of AI in the way we do business, for instance.
Yeah. What Afreximbank did was to get closer to the African Union. We are now a specialized agent of the African Union. So we sit with the decision makers, the governments themselves. How do we implement Agenda 2063? From South African point of view, from Zimbabwe point of view, from Zambia point of view. Because of the relationships that we have with governments, it enables us to engage at that level and say, look, this is how we're seeing it from the continent's point of view. What is it and how can we help you achieve your objectives? And that engagement is very important. We not only do it by ourselves, we work with UNECA, for example, United Nations Economic Commission for Africa. We work with the African Development Bank, we work with TDB, we work with anybody who is interested in finding solutions to these problems. So yes, in the main, the governments are interested in finding solutions to these problems.
What are you most confident but also positive about in terms of the African continent at this point in time with what we're getting right?
I'm excited about the potential that the AfCFTA will bring. I think the Secretariat, which is ably run by Secretary General Wamkele, is doing a fantastic job. Once all the protocols are in place and trade happens, this has the potential of uplifting 30 million Africans from the poorest state, 60 million from moderate poverty. So the potential is huge. And I see there's political will. If you look at the speed with which the AfCFTA was implemented, faster than any regional economic. So the political will is there. What is left now is to actually start the implementation. And I'm excited because from a payments point of view, Africa has many currencies because of the history. So we have created a Pan-African payments and settlement system which will enable African countries to trade amongst themselves using their own currencies and then settle the net difference in foreign currency. That will reduce the US dollar content of African trade. And I think that will boost the economy of Africa tremendously. So that excites me at this point in time. Because you are aware, the African youth are restless. If we don't create opportunities for them in business, in sports, entertainment, we will have a problem going forward. The migration to Europe will continue, the terrorism will continue, but the AfCFTA offers us an opportunity because you now have a bigger market. You are not, if you are in Swaziland, or in Eswatini, you are not constrained by the size of that. You are constrained by 1.2 billion market. So the AfCFTA really has the potential to unlock Africa's growth.
On that exciting note, Dinotenda Tonan.
Maite. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.